And welcome to our view. This is Deborah Sharif and my co host, Linda Solomon. And I know you see that lovely picture up there, which is my colleague and author. I look back and wonder how I got over. And I'm so glad Priscilla is joining us actually from the phone. She um, is on the phone. And Priscilla, you just might want to say hello. So
Hi. Hello, Deborah. Hello, Linda. How are you this evening?
Well, we're a little frazzled getting started, but we're well. We're well.
and
Yeah, I'm sorry I can't be live. I don't know what's going on with these computers, but it's okay. As long as you can hear me,
We
I
can
guess
hear
I'm
you.
good to go.
absolutely. And I'm noticing, Linda, if you notice, do you notice my screen looks like it's kind of frozen, or am I talking natural?
It looks frozen.
Okay, I thought it looked frozen. It's not working the way it should. So I'm going to hand it to you until I figure out what's going on. Restream, we're live, going on Instagram, LinkedIn, and actually, I wish it, and YouTube. So I don't understand why I'm kind of freezing up. But Linda, I'm gonna
Turn it over to me.
pass it to you.
Again, welcome to our view. We are really excited to be here and to be able to host this podcast. And as noted in our advertisement, this podcast is designed specifically for melanated women, 55 and older. We created this podcast because we recognize that issues that we deal with on a day-to-day basis are unique to us as Black females, and so we wanted to create and offer a safe space for us to come together to learn with and from each other, to talk about issues that we might not have the opportunity or the desire to talk about with other people. And so we just welcome you here, and we're just excited to be here. And there's so many things that we'll talk about. But this evening, we will be featuring female authors, primarily Priscilla Flint, who has an extraordinary story. It is incredible. As I read her book, I couldn't stop reading it. Each page it was just an incredible story, and she's had an incredible journey. So we look forward to hearing from her. And then we will talk about what
Linda,
is
I hear
happening.
some ruffling with your audio.
Excuse
That's
me.
yes. Are you ruffling anything or okay?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. Continue. Sorry.
Okay. So we'll also talk about what's happening in the world in terms of this, just what's happening right now. It's the elephant in the room, so we have to talk about it for a few moments. And then, but before we talk to Priscilla, we wanted to remind people about our very first podcast, which was 2 weeks ago. We talked about clarity and what that means, and how having clarity, being clear about what's most important to you, and making sure that your how you live your life is aligned with your values and your goals. And so we had a really nice discussion. We had a free giveaway for the first 10 people who emailed us at ourviewnubianqueens@gmail.com. This evening, we have a free giveaway as well that Deborah will talk about in a little while. And so, with that, I would like to have Priscilla talk a bit about. We have a few questions for you, Priscilla, but would you like to? Do you have anything that you would like to say just as an introduction? Hmm. And I think what has happened is she is not on the line. All right. Well, while we wait for her, let's talk about what's happening in the world right now.
Can you hear her? She's talking.
Priscilla, I
No,
cannot.
you can't hear her. Okay, hold on. All right, talk, Priscilla. This is
Good morning. I mean, good afternoon. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you, Linda?
I am well, thank you. I'm well, and as I said earlier, it's a pleasure to have you here. Like I've known you, we've been in the same circles for a while, but to hear you, to have read your story, just it was just moving. I would encourage people to read it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So why don't you just very briefly introduce yourself before we, we have a bunch of questions, but before we start asking, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, so my name is Priscilla Flint. I was born and raised in Roxbury, Massachusetts. I've been a community activist, I guess, all my life. I wrote the book because it talks about my trials and my tribulations and some of the things I've went through as a black woman growing up in Roxbury. I lost two of my children. I lost my 4-year-old son in a fire, and I lost my 7-year-old son in a car accident. And so I never got to raise my children. So I think that's why I am where I'm at today, working with youth with the Marcus Anthony Hall Educational Institute, because I love young kids. I love their energy, and I'm just happy to be able to work with these young people. And my book, it took me 5 years to write, and I wrote it all from memory. So
Incredible. Thank you.
I'm supposed to two more, but I haven't yet. So
Okay. Well, maybe we can encourage you to finish the next two. But what I wanted to say before we go any further is that, in celebration of Black History Month, even though we're out of February, we know that it's important to highlight the accomplishments of Black people throughout the year. And we are offering um, Priscilla and Priscilla's story as an invitation. We want as a form of motivation, inspiration. Her story is not one of its struggle. It's not just struggle. It's about triumph. It's about perseverance. It's about faith. The book is intended to, and we invited Priscilla because we knew that it would uplift you. It would serve as a springboard for some folk. So thank you, Priscilla.
thank you
Deborah,
for having me. I'm sorry I can't be live, but it's as long as we can hear each other, that works. So I
and
thank you all for having me. I got an opportunity to listen to the last show that you all did, and it was very inspiring. So I'm glad that we have this platform, because we as Black women, especially seniors, Nubian queens, um, it's very important that we come together and work together, because we're going through so much in the city, this country, and the state. And so I'm just glad to be here.
wonderful. Thank you.
and talking about that, I'm hoping I'm not freezing up. It looks like I'm talking regular. So, um, Linda and I were talking prior to the show about what is happening with our government, and Linda pointed out some really very important topics, and that is making sure that the health of all of us is intact. Pretty much what I'm saying is the body mind connection and how important it is that we do self-care. And Linda, you were saying some other things which kind of put me in a position, says, yes, what's happening in the government, but we've been through so much as Black people that we're going to survive. But we also have to look out for our mental health and make sure that we're taking care of ourselves through all of this. And you were saying some other things, and then Priscilla, feel free to chime in as well.
Well, let me say, Deb is the one who's always thinking about money, business, like, having multiple streams of income. And all of that is clearly very important because money matters. There's no doubt about that, right? And what I was simply saying is that we want to balance the conversation with um, our well being as Black women. We, throughout history, had to take on so many different roles. We've had to wear so many different hats that it's miraculous that we're not a group of imbeciles. Like Black women have taken care of business from day one. And oftentimes that means that we don't take care of ourselves. And so I wanted us to be sure that we're talking about wellness, health, nutrition, relationships, taking care of our those of us who have aging parents, anything and everything that deals with us nurturing ourselves, taking care of ourselves and each other as Black Nubian queens. We are, and we have a tremendous history. And so I want to make sure that we marry the two: the economics, money making, monetizing things, and our a holistic well being.
That's so true. I've been doing this work for a long time, and I never really knew that much about self care. I've always, because I've had mental health issues. If you read my book, you see that I was in mental institutions, but thank God I haven't been in one since 1995. Told me I would never go into another one. But it's just that when you don't take care of yourself, especially your mental health, because you're not aware that you have mental health issues, you tend to go off the deep end. I for lack of a better word, like I said, I was hospitalized at Boston State Hospital and at the Solomon Carter Floor when I moved back to Boston from Alaska. So I've been in and out of mental hospitals, and I know how we are treated. I know how we are medicated up. I know how we are ignored, and so um, I feel like we've never really, as Black women, we've never really got given a fair chance or a fair shot. We're always treated as less than, but we're always the one that does the majority of the work.
Mm-hmm.
And so our mental health is very important because stress kills. That's why I think a lot of us we wind up with illnesses. You know, diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, all these um, illnesses. That um, our white counterparts don't get like we get. You know, if we look at, I think it was when Tito Jackson was running for mayor, he made the analogy that people that live in Back Bay live 30 years longer than people that live in Roxbury, Manapin, and that's just insane. That means we live in food deserts. We're talking now about mutual aid. And how does that work within our community? How do we make sure that our people are fed and taken care of? We did it during COVID. That's why I know we can do it again.
That's
You
right.
know, when COVID hit, we were the ones that were out there making sure that our people got tested. We were the ones that making sure that there was a place for them to come and get vaccinated. They wanted us to go to the Red Sox. Where is that? Where the Red Sox play at? Fenway Park. They wanted us to go down there and get vaccinations, or to Gillette Stadium. And we was like, well, what about Roxbury? What about the Reggie Lewis Center? Somewhere closer.
Mm-hmm.
And when they did open it, we found that the people were coming from everywhere. We had to let our community know, listen, we did this for us, and so you all need to come down here and get vaccinated. We we want people to look like us that can relate to us, and so that whole thing it was a disaster, but we lived through it. Some of us did, and some of us didn't. I lost my mom during COVID, and
Mm,
so it's just we have to hold each other together. I think that's we need to be in collaboration instead of competition all the time. And
absolutely.
as Black women, we do a lot of that should be our middle names because we never can sit down and just do one thing. We got to be doing two or three things at the same
Right.
time. I'll get through that.
You
No,
know,
you.
could
Mhm.
I,
I just go on, Linda.
I was going to say, Priscilla, you're talking about what you're talking about brings to mind the fact that we normalize the abnormal. We- We're not supposed to have to wear 5 hats and pay the bills and cook. We're
Yeah.
not. We've normalized that, and it will definitely, without a doubt, take a toll on our health if we don't address it. We normalize trauma. How many of us have been abused?
Mm,
It's just insane. When I read your story, I thought it is miraculous that you survived all of that. The fact, you know, it's just miraculous that you survived all of the trauma that I read you experienced in your book. It's miraculous. But many of us have experienced things that we don't talk about because it's embarrassing or for whatever reason. But
right.
we need to come together. The saying that we're only as sick as our secrets. We don't need to carry that stuff. And I see you wrote it and you let it out, and I'm sure that made you feel lighter when you published that book.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why we created this safe space for us so that we can talk about some of the issues that we're dealing with, or just so that we have someone that understands
Mhm.
what we are going through.
Mm-hmm.
A podcast, that really, really understands, and bringing, just like my other podcast, when you were my first guest, because Priscilla is someone who I thought about when I started Success Talk with Deb Sharif. I mean, it was just natural to have her.
Mhm.
But Linda, if you want to, Linda, Linda, that's you moving and ruffling. Can you hear that? When you do that, that's.
Okay. All
Yes,
right.
I just wanted to mention that, so because I want to hear this next piece. But Priscilla, I want you to listen to, um, Linda Solomon is an author as well, and could
Mm-hmm.
you share with us your that's
Okay. About the book that I'm working on.
yes.
Okay. And actually, the book that I'm working on it's a children's book. It's called The Magical Money Tree and the Talking Ledger. And this book teaches people about cryptocurrency. And I wrote the book because Deb and I were trying to wrap our heads around cryptocurrency, what it is, what all these terms are. And it was really extremely difficult for me to grasp that concept. So I thought, I need to, I need to write this in a way so that it is digestible and so that people can understand it. So I wrote this book, um, and although it's a children's book, it's for, anyone can read the book. In fact, there's another one that I'm working on that's for adults, but it's an easy to understand language. Um, and I wrote it because money is changing. Just like we move from gold to paper money and now to digital banking, the next big shift is already happening right now. People have been talking about cryptocurrency for some time now. It's not new. But what is it and why should we care about it? We need to care because that's the trend. That's where we're going. And we don't want to be left behind. So think of cryptocurrency as digital money that isn't controlled by any one bank or government. Instead, it runs on a technology called blockchain. I was like, oh my God, what is blockchain? What is that? Like, seriously. But blockchain keeps transactions secure. Supposedly, it keeps transactions secure, transparent, and nearly impossible to alter. So this is supposed to be a system that is much more secure than the banking system that we've been engaged in for as long as I can remember. And so it runs on technology. It's supposed to be safer, and it really is the future of money. We had It really is the future of money. The cryptocurrency seems to be complicated, but at its core, it's about financial freedom, security, and new opportunities. And in today's world, we know knowledge is power. So I wrote this book. It's an easy read, and it will outline the terminology that you need to know, but it will give you a complete overview of what cryptocurrency is in language that is easy for you to understand. Um, and so keep an eye out because it'll be available within the next, I would say, few weeks, no more than a month. And even if you don't use my tech, even if you don't get this one, we have to know what it is. We can't be behind the eight wheel.
Right. She asked what is the name again?
It's the Magical Money Tree and the Talking Ledger. And my hope is that because it's written in this format, that we'll read it with young people so that they'll know too, because our babies are behind a lot of times, right? They need to know what's going on as well. And I think we can agree that the system, they say if you don't want Black people to know something, put it in a book, right? So
Yeah.
this is an invitation. This is an invitation to learn about cryptocurrency. And then these lovely ladies have two books that I'm sure when you hear about them, they're must reads. Well, actually, Deb, yours is not. Yours is a screenplay, so it's different, but it's something that is very intriguing as well.
Oh,
So
well,
thank you for allowing me to share.
yes. Well, I'm freezing up, so I don't know if you're hearing me naturally or you can hear me
I
okay.
think you're fine.
Oh,
I can
okay.
hear you.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm in pre-production with a story that is near and dear to me. And I know that a lot of people, the public, as you know, many historic, um, iconic legends, Black folks that we've never heard of. But I know that many people have not heard about what we call the Maroon settlements. Maroon settlements were escapes where they were underground homes for enslaved Africans as well as Native Americans. And, you know, now new research has surfaced that we actually are the Native Americans, some of the original people of this land. So when we were discriminated against, that's exactly what people of color did. They left those plantations and they went underground. So I'm writing a story about a young girl, and I'm just going to read it right here so you can. Whoops, I'm sorry for making all that noise. But we're having all kinds of technical difficulties. But hey, that's what happens. This is our second launch. So this is called Cecilia, The Rise of the Maroon Settlements. And this is in her own words. That's what I love about just kind of sharing this particular piece. I was born in 1854 in Mississippi to free Black parents, a rare and precious thing in those days. My daddy, a proud and skilled carpenter, he built everything from houses to barns with his own two hands. My mom, a seamstress and house designer, turned those structures into homes, crafting beauty where others saw only walls. Together, they were a force of nature, building a life for us that outshone even the homes of the white folks in the so called better parts. But in a world steeped in envy and hatred, success wasn't something Black folks were allowed to have. By the time I was 9 or 10, the whispers of resentment had grown into threats. Our house, our sanctuary, began a target. One night, the darkness outside our windows filled with white men, their faces twisted with hatred, their hands gripping guns. They demanded we leave or die. My daddy, unshaken, stood his ground. He wasn't just a carpenter, he was a warrior in spirit. And he had allies, Seminole warriors, a proud people of mixed African and Native heritage who lived nearby. Together they formed a bond, ready to defend what was ours, and defend we did. It wasn't long before the tension erupted into an all out war. The rednecks, the blacks, and the black natives clashed in a battle that shook the very earth beneath us. But white power was relentless. The townsfolk called on the governor, and soon an order came down like a hammer. All free blacks and natives were to vacate the land, our land, or face extermination. Daddy saw through their schemes. They wanted our homes, our farms, our dreams, but my daddy was no fool. Before the order could be reinforced, we vanished, leaving behind a ghost of a life. We made it seem like we were still there. And when the mob came in the dead of the night, torches in hand, they set fire to empty homes. By then, we had escaped to the hills, carving out hidden underground homes far from prying eyes. I thought we found safety, but safety is an illusion when betrayal lurks in the shadows. A black man who joined our settlement turned traitor, leading the white mob straight to us. I was 13 when they came, and that day became a wound I will carry forever. I watched my mother, the strongest woman I ever known, be brutalized before my eyes. My daddy, my hero, was shot in cold blood, and my little brother, my sweet little brother, was torn from us, screaming, dragged into the hell of slavery. As for me, I didn't escape either. They caught me and sold me to a nearby plantation. Being born free and raised in dignity made the chains all the heavier. The plantation was a nightmare, my people stripped of their humanity, worked from sunup to sundown under the lash. Mothers cradled white babies while their own children cried, neglected and hungry. But for me, it was worse. I could read. I was educated. That made me a threat. They muzzled me with a leather contraption, silencing my voice. They tore the clothes from my back to keep me from running. But they underestimated me. Every night, when the sun sank and shadows took over, I slipped the muzzle off and crept into the cabins of my people. I shared my knowledge, teaching them to read, telling them stories of freedom, of the beautiful home my family once had, of the pride my daddy carried until his last breath. I wasn't just teaching them to dream, I was preparing them to fight. My daddy had taught me how to shoot, how to defend myself, and I passed that knowledge on to the ones I trusted. I knew escape was their only hope, and I began to plan. I dreamed of building a hidden maroon settlement deep in the forest where we could live free and undetected. I wanted to find my little brother, but first I needed to secure a safe haven. I had no illusions about the danger. The odds were stacked against us, but I had my daddy's courage, my mama's strength, and the fire burning in my soul. I was ready. It was only a matter of time before the escape would begin. And when it did, I would lead my people to freedom or die trying. Cecilia, The Rise of the Maroons. You all were so patient listening. That's my story. You all there?
Where?
Yes, I put my phone on mute, but that was a wonderful story, Deborah. I like that. Remind me of Harriet Tubman. Kind of reminded me of her story.
Hmm. So
But yeah.
you're developing a screenplay. This is a screenplay.
Yes, it is. It's a
Oh,
screenplay. Hmm.
wonderful, wonderful.
I had pictures to show you, but I'm telling you, Restream, I'm going to really complain about this because even though we pardon our streamers or the people that are actually watching this, but Restream should do better. My my screen should not be freezing up like this. So
Okay, well, listen, we're people, we Delta Lemon, we make lemonade. So we'll just keep it moving. you know?
Absolutely.
So thank you for sharing that. And Priscilla, we, again, you're the feature speaker. We know that your experiences will inspire our listeners. And I would like to, you told us why you wrote the book. It's your story. And you wrote it to inspire and uplift others. A question that I have, why don't we start with the name of the book? I looked back and wondered how I got over. Now, it sounds like you had the title, which was a little different from a long time ago. Can you just tell us what happened, why you changed the title?
So the title was How I Got Over. And then when I was going through the publishing process, yeah, I sent my book to, I think it was called Publishers Clearinghouse. I think that was the name of it. No, maybe, yeah, I can't remember. But it was something, and they told me that someone already had that title, and so I couldn't use that title. And even though they didn't publish my book, I had to figure out a title. But I wanted that How I Got Over in the title, and so I kept thinking, and I kept thinking, and I, it was like, I look back, I look back, I look back, and I was like, oh, I look back and wonder how I got over. I got it. And people read that book. I say in the introduction that it will make you laugh and it will make you cry because I've been through a lot, But I thank God for His grace and His mercy. And I mean, I wrote that book when I published it. I started it in 2005. I published it in 2010. That was 15 years ago. I literally retired from the city of Boston 15 years ago as their payroll manager. I ran the payroll for the entire city. We had like 20,000 employees back then. And
Wow.
I retired because I was being discriminated against, and my boss was just really acting up. So I retired and I started doing I started protesting. The first place that I protested was the Bruce Boland building. And that's how BG was born, Black Economic Justice Institute. But my book, when I wrote my book, I actually before I wrote it, I went on a retreat by myself because I had to God, was I really supposed to write this book? Did I have to tell the truth and everything? And the spirit was like, yeah, I went away for 3 days during Mother's Day weekend because Mother's Day is hard for me. Of all the holidays, Mother's Day is really hard for me because of the death of my two children. But I do look back, and I do not because God he's been good to me, and my ups and downs didn't stop when I wrote that book. It seemed like it just started more. I retired, I started a nonprofit. I work with several different nonprofits in the city of Boston, helping them start or work. And it just seemed, like I said, I got two more books. Have time to really um, start. But I know that there's at least two more books in me, and so I'm just thankful that I was able to, because I never thought I would. A long time ago when I was young, I'm like, I'm gonna write a book one day, But everybody says that, right? But how many of us really actually do it? And so I wanted to show, and as people read my book, some people come up to me and say, Priscilla, I've been through a lot of that stuff that you went through, but
Mhm.
people just, were ashamed. And I mean, some of the things in me I'm not proud of that I did, but, I did it. And I thank God for being a forgiving God, that He don't hold grudges. Other people, but He does.
Yeah.
And so, I'm thankful that I'm still alive, at 70 years old, because
Hmm.
anything could have happened to me. I mean, I've had some daring things, so so, but I'm thankful and grateful for His grace and mercy, because If it wasn't for him, I know I would not be here. I'm
Right.
thankful for Debbie's friendship. Me and her kind of like took to, and then I met you a while ago too, as well. So I'm thankful that we can have a place where we can talk, because there's a lot of things that go on in our life that we just get kind of like get shut down, like nobody wants to hear it, or no one, they called me crazy. They said I was manic depression. Then they said I was bipolar, and I'm like, that was a lie. I'm not done with them. I'm Priscilla, And so, but it hasn't been easy, and it seems like the older I get, it doesn't get any easier. But I still trust him. I have my belief and trust in God. So I just keep it moving. I love working with my youth, and I know that God is able. And I know that that a change is going to come. That's my theme song for my
Mhm.
show. That's
Love it. Love it.
that's a change is going to come, and I believe it, because change happens every day.
That's right.
But we as Black people, especially Black women, have been through a whole lot. And but we're still here. We're still
Right.
here. We're not going.
That's right.
Right.
So,
We're the original mothers.
There you go. There you go. That's right. Can I say, Priscilla,
yeah.
we want people to read your book, so we're not going to tell everything that we like, everything about your book. But I want to say this, and I have a question for you.
Mhm.
Um, when I read your story, it was clear to me why you would have a nervous breakdown. Crystal clear.
Mhm.
The fact that you were here doing what you're doing is nothing short of a miracle. Like, it's just incredible. And I believe that there are many other women listening and out there who have experienced a tremendous amount and they're just holding on, or they've somehow, I don't know, managed to do something with that trauma so that they're not incapacitated. But you, throughout your story, you talk about faith carried you through the difficult times, right? So can you share a moment when your faith was tested the most and how you found the strength to keep going?
Well, I think my faith was tested after I lost my second son. My second son died in a car accident coming from Alabama with his father's people. Um, Actually, Michael Curry is my nephew. I was married to his uncle, and he happened to be in that car coming from Alabama when my son died. There was 11 people in the car, and my son was the only one that died.
Oh my
So
goodness.
right then, right then and there, I knew, because that was my second son I had lost. I knew something was wrong, and my brother, brother Kenny, he told me two stories in the Bible. He told me about Job. He said, "Priscilla, read the book of Job," and then he told me about Jonah, and he broke it down to me so that I could understand. And he said, "You're running from God." And he said, "But God," he said, "read Jonah and read Job," and I read them, and I knew that Job had lost everything he had. And his wife wanted him to curse God and die. And his friends asked him, "What did he do?" But he said he held on, and he said, "No, I'm not going to curse God and die." And in the end, he wound up with double. He lost his children. He lost his cattle.
Everything.
He lost everything. And that's how I felt when I lost my second son. And then my brother explained the story about Jonah, how Jonah was running from God. God told Jonah to go to Nineveh, but Jonah didn't like the people the way they were acting, so he
Mhm.
went and got on a ship and realized that, oh, you can't run from God. And yeah, I'm not gonna tell the whole story, but and that's where I said, you know what? I think I need to change my life. So, I think I need Jesus. I need God, because I didn't have nowhere else to go. I didn't have no one else to turn to,
Mhm.
but God
Mhm.
at the time. And I had a friend who came and witnessed to me and, told me about how she had gave her life to Christ and how her life was different. She used to be like, I go to church still on Tuesdays, I go Thursday, I go Saturday, I go Sunday. I looked at her and I said, Darlene, you go to church too much for me. But she was just witnessing to me. She was telling me about how her life had changed, and I was at the point where I'm trying to commit suicide, calling the Good Samaritans and stuff, because I couldn't understand. I was a good mother. My kids didn't even live, they were babies when I lost them, And so I took on that journey of giving my life to Christ, May 2nd, 1991. And I haven't turned back yet. I haven't turned back. And I ain't know it's been perfect. I ain't know it's been holy, but I know the God that I serve, and I know that He has blessed me in a mighty, mighty, mighty special way. And I know that I am one of His chosen children. And if you don't have if you don't go through a test, you don't have a testimony. So I know and trust God. And I've always, when I was a little girl going to Sunday school, I always knew about God. But of course, we don't always do godly things. When we get grown, we just grab it. I ain't going to church no more. This, that, and the other thing. But I'm just thankful that God had His hands on me. I say I was a special child because my mother didn't raise me. My aunt raised me. It wasn't until I was 12 that I went to my mom, my real mom, and my sisters and my stepfather. All that's in the book. But I thank God. I had no one to thank but God, because He had His hands on me. He's had His hands on me from day one, and I guess that's why I'm not afraid. That's why I don't fear nobody. That's why people don't bother me, what they say about me or how they look at me or how they treat me, because I know I treat people with the goodness of my heart. I know I treat people the way I want to be treated. And I know that I'm a fighter for my people. And that's what I'm going to continue to do, because I feel like that's what God has called me to do. I am a licensed minister. I got licensed in 2009 by Bishop Robert Perry. But I think after I'm not in the pulpit. I'm not a preacher that gets in the pulpit and preach. I preach in the community. I preach in the organizations that I work with. I talk to my young folks and to my peers, and I teach them how to stand up for yourself. Don't let people talk to you any kind of way. Because our young folks are going through some stuff that you may not even know about. Right. So that's where my faith comes in.
Priscilla, we want to know, where can they find your book? I have your email up here, pflint223@gmail.com. But where can they find I Look Back and Wonder How I Got Over?
Well, if they live in Boston, they can go to Frugal Bookstore in Roxbury on Nubian Square. They could pick up a copy. Or they could go on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles or Zulon Press, which is my publisher.
Okay. So, is there any other contact information other than your email that someone can get a hold of you?
I can give them my phone number.
Okay.
I have a website, but it's my website for my my program.
They're probably curious about what you're doing. So give your website and your phone number if you want to.
Okay. Yep. So my website is www.mahei.org, and that's in the name of my Anthony Hall Educational Institute, and I'm working on my.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. I hear a lot of rustling, and could you repeat that again, please?
Okay, so the website is www.mahei.org, and my phone number is 617-515-6908. And awesome. The email is pflint1223@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, Priscilla, we want to thank you. We're out of time. It's, believe it or
Yeah,
not, the hour has come to a close. And
right.
we thank you so much for sharing your book with us and what inspired you to write it and the journey that you were on. And I'm sure a lot of Black women out there, a lot of people, period, could relate to some of the highs and lows of your life and what you went through. But thank you so much, my good friend and
Thank
colleague,
you.
for coming on to Our View. We
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Deborah. And thank you, Linda, for having me. Maybe I'll come on again. You all can see my real face.
Exactly. And Linda, some parting words before we go?
Well, yes, I want to say, Priscilla, I thank you for writing your book because it sounds like you didn't let trauma, and I have to say trauma because it was more than adversity, it was trauma throughout your life. And you didn't let that stop you. And it was incredibly brave of you to share, have a tell all, story. And
Yeah,
but healing, you can't heal in hiding. You just can't.
right.
And so um, everyone cannot write a book. However, it's important to stay in community, places where you feel safe, where you can be who you are, or discover who you really are. Um, and so we hope that our view is a place where you'll find comfort and warmth and acceptance.
Yes. Well, I already feel accepted. I really appreciate you and Deborah inviting me to come on for our view. And so I'm excited about where it's going to go and where it's going to take us. So
Absolutely.
thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Take care, Priscilla. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
yes, and
Bye-bye.
streamers out there, bye-bye. And streamers out there, thank you for streaming in. This is Our View. I'm Deborah Sharif.
And I'm Linda Solomon.
Thanks again for tuning in.